from 3 to 5 p.m. as we embark in charted on popular conversations that others deemed as taboo. Out of the brown bag inside Gospel Tuesday on Fit FM 96.7. Fit FM, Trelawney's radio, your life, your music.
Fit FM is owned and operated by Communistation Company Limited. Located Stuart Castle, Duncan's Trelawney, Jamaica. We broadcast on FM 96.7 locally and is heard worldwide on fitfmja.com. Our mission is to amplify diverse voices and opinions, inform, educate, entertain, and engage listeners of all ages and lifestyle while promoting responsible community development. Fit FM 96.7, your life, your music.
Are you struggling with loneliness? Feeling depressed? Are you searching for a purpose to live? Are you ready to tap into your inner greatness? Ready to soar to your full potential? Come and be inspired. Join me, Dr. Asha Mwendo, on Healing Moment inside Gospel and Soul every Wednesday, 6 p.m., where we will help you to understand your purpose. We will help you to find your wind. We'll show you how to open your wings and fly. Healing Moments, Fit FM 96.7, your life, your music. Good evening, my people. How are you this evening? This is your host, Dr. Asha Mwendo, on Healing Moments on Fit FM 96.7, your life, your music. And we have an awesome program lined up for you this evening. As usual, you know, we want you to be part of the conversation, so you can send your messages and voice notes on WhatsApp at 876-478-9144, 876-317-1991. And as usual, you know, Healing Moments join the call for elimination of violence against our women and girls. And we have an awesome program lined up for you, as I said at the top. And my guest this evening, he is in studio, people. So tell your friends, call everybody if they're not on yet. Link us on YouTube, Facebook, and all the other social media platforms. And if that fails, join us on fitfmja.com. My guest is Dr. Vincent Riley, and we're going to talk about matters of the heart. And you know how the heart go already. So you know the drill already. You're going to get your friend, get your pen, get your sip. Listen to this with a bit of music until we come right back.
Until my last breath, I will praise you, Lord, forever. Blessing my life, and you keep showing me favor. Goodness and your mercy shall follow me forever. I will not forget, no, I will not forget. I never saw what my life could be, but I felt greatness inside of me. Tried to share my dreams with my friend, but no, now one of them couldn't see. I've taken up and fight. Many tears I cried. But the challenges was the preparation for my time to shine. My last breath, I will praise you, Lord. I praise you, Lord, forever. Said you keep showing me favor. I will not forget, no, I will not forget.
Good evening again. As I said, we are going to have an awesome time this evening. In my little Let's Talk bit, commended to Disaster Committee, headed by Miss Diane Hilton Lewis. They had their inaugural listen to me now, inaugural poetry competition talking about drop, cover, hold, earthquake readiness is within your control. I had the opportunity of being one of the judges this morning, running into the afternoon, and it was excellent. The pieces that came from the school was out of this world. They're all original pieces. The teachers are great, and the students did very well. First place winner was Low River, coming all the way from South Trelawney, almost on Manchester border, came down to Falmouth, and they won. Second place was First in All Age in the middle of Trelawney, and they were second place. And third place was Unity Primary. You know, I didn't realize all sections of Trelawney was covered because Unity is in the northern part. And so all three schools, they did very well. They came out on top, and the pieces were excellent. Children delivered very well. As judges, it was so easy to just listen. The hardest part was to divide the winners, because can I tell you, the first place and second place only have 0.3% dividing them. 0.3, not 3 points, or 0.3 points that separated them. And so that was great. As usual, I'm counting the call. I'm asking you persons to support us as we do our My Only Children drive. I still have pins here. Hear them rattling. So I have pins. So please contact me. Remember, it starts at $300 and you can go up to as much as you want to give. This is to keep Myone's children in school. Myone went into the hospital and she went to have her baby and she contracted in hospital COVID. She never came out. The baby came out motherless. She died there. And her desire was to keep her children in Christian education. And that's where she had started them off. It's a challenge for the father with 3 children, and we are making it our business to be somebody else's caregiver. And so therefore, we're asking to contribute that we can keep these children in school, right? And coming next month, in April, there's going to be a new added feature to Healing Moments. I will tell you all about that come next month, because this Saturday coming, which is the 1st of April, Healing Moments will be 3 years old. Yes. And so you know what's happening, people. Saturday coming is my birthday because I started Healing Moments on my birthday 3 years ago on a Wednesday, right? So here we are now, getting to 3 years later, growing all up and becoming, if 3 years in Raider time, you're a turn man and turn woman, right? So we're growing up. So that's it for my Let's Talk this evening. I look forward to having my Let's Talk with you next week. And remember now, if there are topics you want me to touch for my Let's Talk or in my program, you send me a link up on 876-870-2284, or you send a message straight here to Fit FM on 876-478 876-317-1991. And just before I go into my program, I want to big up our own little everyday supporter, Patrick Beckford, for his continued support to us. And I do enjoy the gift you gave me. I will make very good use of it. I'm going to put lots of lovely music there. So thank you for your gift. And Fit FM is always thankful for your support. Sir Patrick, you're always in our heart. So this evening, I have a man in studio. Don't tell anybody, right? So I have a man in studio this evening, and he's a consultant, cardiologist, and physician. I'm not going to, anything else I'm going to tell you about him is that he's a medical director of the Heart and Wellness Center or place. I hope I get it right. But if I make a mistake, that's all right. The man is in the house, and I'm going to give him the chance to tell you first who he is, and then we'll go talk matters of the heart. Welcome.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here, to be in studio with yourself and Julia, to talk a little bit about something I love, the heart.
The heart.
The heart, and is really, yes, it's really
tell the people.
never told My name is Vincent Riley, and I'm a cardiologist and an associate lecturer at the University of the West Indies, Department of Medicine. I'm from St. Anne, the Garden Parish, and I went to high school in St. Anne as well. However, throughout my education, I've been to several parts of the world. You saw this I studied a degree in internal medicine, and then I went off to the University of Toronto to do cardiology, and I also specialized in cardiac rehabilitation as well as stress cardiac imaging and nuclear cardiology. So a mouthful, a whole lot of saying, a lot of nothing really.
No, don't call it nothing.
But,
and I know you're going to explain everything to us before the evening is over.
Yes, so tonight it's a real pleasure to be here to talk about the heart and how diseases affects the heart and how we can help ourselves to prevent heart disease. Prevention is the key.
Prevention.
All right. And then if you do get the disease, then we're going to talk a little bit about how do you control it. And a lot of it is not just about pills alone. And then, once you've gotten it under control, we can even talk about anything else about the heart, how it affects emotion, how emotions affect it as well. Because the heart, the heart has, I like to think of the heart as the most important organ in the body. My neurosurgeons and neurologists will disagree, but the heart is very important.
For me, I always say the heart is the engine of the body.
It is.
I have heard of persons being brain dead and still live. I've never heard of anybody heart dead and still alive.
That's an interesting thought. I've never heard of that. However, we do stop the heart, but then not for a very long period. It's just for you to undergo surgery. But other than that, if your heart dead, you're really
because
dead.
when you do stop the heart for purposes, you still have something else backing up.
That's
but
the thing.
We can't manage without it for any long period of time.
For sure.
Yes, and most of us we only think of the heart when it gets broken.
Yes, Valentine's heart is very important. And if you go through the persons talking about the Valentine's heart that came up with that design and talk about the heart, it's just really, as you said, the engine of the body.
Yes.
It's what guides the body. It's where we think a lot of our emotion centers are. Because although the emotion centers are really in the brain, that controls what we call the limbic system,
yes,
and the amygdala and all of that, those fancy parts of the brain that nobody talks about, that controls our emotion. But guess what? If you meet someone you like, boom, your heart skip a beat.
Yes. And funny enough, I've been doing some research in recent times because of different type of clients I do see. And I have come to believe and understand that broken heart syndrome is a real thing that impacts a person's life and bound them up. They can't go forward, they can't go backward. The brain and the heart is out of sync, and then everything else is out of sync.
And believe it or not, so broken heart syndrome is the loss of someone. Either you're going through grief or you're in a stressful situation. There is a name for it. It's called Takotsubo.
Okay.
Cardiomyopathy. It's a real entity.
Pause a moment for a cause. Pause for a cause. I wanted to tell us this again because, as I tell you, on Healing Moments, we learn every single week. So I am learning something new this evening. Teach me again.
So Takotsubo, which is broken heart syndrome, or wherein you're going through a moment, a stressful moment, you have lost someone that is very dear to you, or a crisis for whatever reason.
Right.
We're not sure why it happens, but guess what? The function of the heart is reduced.
Yes.
And it's a part of the heart. So if you think Takotsubo is a Japanese vase, so the bottom part of the heart shaped like that vase, and the upper part of the heart is the only part that is squeezing. that lower part of the heart does not move. So the person come in with shortness of breath, leg swelling, not able to lie flat. So they have frank heart failure. They have heart failure, bad heart failure. But guess what? It appears to be a transient thing. It's short-lived and they recover.
Yes.
The heart recover back to normal.
So you hear people and have the heels.
Seem like I'm striking the right words tonight.
Broken heart can be healed. So if you're listening this evening and your heart is broken, you're at the right place at the right time. We're going to help you to heal. So, doctor, the heart can be affected by a number of diseases. And for me, the longer we live, the more we learn about new diseases. Maybe the diseases are not new, and they were affecting heart from a long time, but now we are learning new diseases and we're also learning names. And I also believe that our present dispensation create other challenges for the heart as well. As we become more modernized, our lifestyle changes, we are more sedentary now than anything else, all of these things. But it's your conversation this evening. So let me stop talk and give you back the heart.
It's interesting, you have mentioned in that few words that you have said, you have mentioned a whole lot of what we see in terms of heart disease. And those are, what you have mentioned is risk factors for heart disease. So heart disease is really anything at all that can affect your heart. So your heart is really muscles. Most of the heart is muscles, but for any muscle to work, it needs blood.
Right.
And for any muscle to work, it needs an electrical system. It needs something that tells it when to move and when to do what it needs to do. So you can imagine anything that's going to affect the muscles of the heart, which we'll talk about a little later on, and anything that can affect the blood vessels, the thing that carries the oxygen and the hemoglobin, if those are affected, which is what most persons are more knowledgeable about, the narrowing of the blood vessels, the heart attack and all of that. That's what persons talk about. And then, the racing and the skipping of the heart, the palpitations. So that is all part of the electrical
system. But you said something very interesting. You said the heart is a muscle. So it comes to if I am taking something to build my muscles because I want to look strong, does that affect my heart?
Yes. So let's talk about the muscle first then. Seeing that Dr. Asha wants us to, she like muscles. So we're going to talk a little bit about muscles. So the muscles of the heart is what makes it into the pump. So let's take something simple before we get into some of the pathological thing. Getting a little bit older, your blood vessels get a little stiffer. So therefore the heart has to do a little more work to get the blood along. So to do that, it's like being in a gym. It's like lifting weight. So you find those muscles of the heart gets a little bit thicker. And that is when the patients are saying, I went to my doctor and him do an X-ray or him do an ECG and say I have cardiomegaly. Means that the heart is a little bit bigger. The muscles, or he says, I have left ventricular hypertrophy. Means the muscles are a little thicker. So the muscles get a little thicker. And anything that gets a little bit thicker, gets a little bit bigger, needs more blood.
Right.
So therefore, you start having some symptoms. And if it is very thick, it's not able to relax as well as it should. It squeezes very well, but when it is to relax, to be filled, it's a problem. So therefore, you start getting fluid back up. And you start going into things we call heart failure. And because of the shortness of breath and the swelling of the legs and the congestion. It's not that the heart function is bad, but the muscles are thick. They can't relax. So let's get to know. So things that you take to build the body. Let's use exercise. So if you're an avid person who does a lot of exercise, lift a lot of weight, then your heart muscles your heart needs to pump more blood to these big muscles. So therefore, the heart muscles get a little bit bigger. So
That's interesting.
so an athlete tends to have a bigger heart. The muscles are a little bit bigger, but once you stop exercising, those muscles goes away, just like any other muscle. So they get flabby.
So those
Get back
I also get flaccid. All
Yes.
right.
No,
So,
but then they use steroids.
oh.
They use drugs,
Mhm.
and these drugs makes the heart muscles can make the heart muscles grow even bigger, more than it, and it becomes now pathological.
Become a
It
problem.
becomes abnormal and becomes a problem.
Wow.
And these muscles will fail
Mhm.
and end up coming to your doctor complaining of heart failure, shortness of breath. A lot of things with the heart tends to result in heart failure, the symptoms, because your pump is not working well. Either it's not squeezing well, or it's not relaxing well, or your pump going too fast, or your pump going too slow, and therefore you start having symptoms, or part of your pump has been damaged.
Right. So coming from an auto mechanic perspective, because I'm also a trained auto mechanic.
Yes.
So you are telling me now, like the engine, if the valves are blocked up, it's going to affect the work.
Yes.
If the where you're going to pump the gas around, all of these veins are blocked up, are going to have a problem. If I put the wrong thing in the engine, it's going to affect the rest of the car performance, going to overheat. All of these challenges is the same similar situation we have with our bodies. Okay, I have been doing exercises, and I was doing the eclectic machine, and I was doing not too bad with those. When I just start off, the muscles told me that something was not right, but I pushed through that. But I have been using the treadmill more, and on the treadmill now, I tend to watch my pulse rate, my heart rate, and I challenge myself to use the higher levels and all of that. And I realized this morning, I paid attention, and because I'm coming to talk about the heart today, so I paid more attention. And I realized I was able to longer getting and having that heavy breath, and my pulse rate was balancing out. So it's telling me that my heart now is getting used to this new lifestyle.
Yes, exactly. So you're now saying your heart is now telling you you are improving your endurance.
Right.
So your endurance is a lot better. So you don't need, and your muscles, the delivery of your oxygen to your muscles and the work of your heart is saying, listen, now I am at a point where I am now conditioned, I don't have to work as hard as I used to do in the initial state, which is why we encourage exercise. Exercise, moderate intensity, continuous exercise, which is what you're describing. And you monitor. Initially, you may find your pulse rate, because the machine says, oh yeah, you start off at about, normal pulse rate is 60 to 100. And then you find, say, doctor, how far should my pulse rate goes to while I'm exercising? I'll tell you in a few minutes.
Yes,
and I hope Dr. Asha don't calculate hers and tell us, or else we will know her age.
Let's see.
All right. So you find that, when you start off, your heart rate might increase quite rapidly.
Yes.
And then after a while, it just increases as the workload gets more difficult by about 10 every 3 or so minutes. If you keep it at the same moderate intensity. And then, so we always say, have a little warm up before.
Yes.
And then you have the intensity and then a cool down. Now, your warm-up period, I'm going to tell you, listeners. So
come on, listeners, let's listen now.
What we use to say your heart rate is that it's 220 minus your age. That is your maximum. that is your maximum heart rate. That minus your age is your maximum heart rate that your heart will beat at. All right. So if you're going to do a little warm up, you need a little, say, calculate 35% of that. So 35% of what that number is. What is your number again?
We ladies ain't telling.
All right. So 35% of the 220 minus your age is your warm-up heart rate. You know, when you're
Okay.
doing a little thing, I say, yes, I'm there.
Mhm,
And you do it for
mhm.
5 minutes. And then when you go up to your moderate intensity, you're looking at 75 to about 90% of your
Okay.
age. All right, that's where you get to 75 to 90, anywhere between there.
Mhm.
That's when you know you're doing something. So it should feel like you're doing
Doing
something,
something, yes.
but you're able to probably carry on a conversation.
Mhm.
And then your cool down period is when you come back down to your
Right.
35% of your age and thing. And
Okay,
and
very
that is what we do.
interesting.
And that's what we use to say you're doing moderate intensity,
Mm-hmm.
continuous exercise, and you continue that period for about 20 minutes. So 5 minutes up of the warm-up and 20 continuous exercise, and then another 5 minutes or so of your cooling down period. And that's 30
And
minutes.
that's
5
beautiful.
days a
And
week.
what I love with my machine now, it gives me different intensity. But when it is coming down to the minute, the amount of time that I set that I'm going to do, say 30 minutes, it starts to take me down. Take me down to a cool down naturally. So instead of using me setting my own gauges, I do the programs. And the programs guide you in a better way. And what I've also realized, when it's really getting intense, it comes back down again. So it's reading you, and so it's helping me. And I said to myself, this is one of the things I'm going to be sharing with my clients, because sometime in the middle of April, I want to start always a little challenge every year. So I want to do a wellness challenge. And these are my things I'm learning that I can introduce to my clients that come into my challenge.
It is.
Yeah, so continue to tell us a little bit more about the heart.
Yes. So as I said, the muscles is very important, and drugs can affect it. Exercise can affect it in a good way, and also in a bad way. And then the muscles can also be affected by decreased blood supply or no blood supply. So I'm going to use the word that a lot of us don't like: heart attack.
Yes,
So-
man. So I fear the world
Yes.
attack me, and me heart
All
gonna
right?
attack me too.
So heart attack is similar to a stroke. It's a similar process where there is no blood supply to a part of the muscles of the heart, which is why it hurts like there's no tomorrow. It hurts because
hear that it
once
hurts.
the muscle has died, it probably stopped hurting.
Oh.
Or once blood flow is restored, then it stops hurting. But how are you going to know which one it is? Whether it is
Right.
blood flow has been restored
Or it's
or
dead.
the muscle is
You have
dead.
to go in and get it
So,
checked.
which is why, as cardiologists, time is very important for us. And we always say, once you have a heart attack, time becomes muscle. Time becomes muscle for us as cardiologists. So some persons say you get this sudden blockage, it's a heart attack. But then you do have this group of persons, and they'll tell you, doctor say I have angina. So angina is really narrowing of those blood vessels, and the blood vessels for the heart are on the outside of the heart. They're not on the inside, they're on the outside. And therefore, you find they get narrowed, and once you start exercising and doing something, your heart rate, remember what Dr. Asha said, no, her heart rate is what she's watching. And she noticed that with time, her heart rate doesn't go as high, which is why, although you have angina, you can exercise because your heart rate is not going to go up as fast as you want it to, and it doesn't peak and shoot up to give you the chest pain and flog you out, so you have to stop. So,
You know, as you were talking about angina, a joke came into my mind. You notice I smiled because a lady was telling me recently that her husband went to the doctor, and doctor says he has vagina in the heart. And she don't understand how that go. So she come to me explain, because she didn't know that possibly for too much woman he run up. So as you was talking that, you notice I started to smile.
Yes.
So she came to my mind. I had to explain to her it's angina that she have in the heart, but then no, they need to go back to the doctor. The doctor can explain it to them. The doctor is better at explaining than I can. And I was laughing too much anyway.
Yeah. So
Yes.
so angina is just narrowing of the blood vessel, and once you do something that requires the extra oxygen,
You're gonna
and
feel
angina becomes predictable. So a lot of persons
Okay.
will say, you know, doc, if I'm going on the hill, I am fine.
Mm-hmm.
Once I'm going up that hill, doc, I have to stop because there's this heaviness, the little pressure there. But I stop, and within a few minutes, it goes away,
And they're gone again.
and they're gone again. Or we give them a pill to put under the tongue that makes the blood vessels a little more dilated, and then now the discomfort, because it doesn't have to be discomfort, it can be shortness of breath as well. And the person will tell you, doctor, I feel like my heart racing now and it's going fast. Yes, that is because your heart rate has gone up and the requirements of the muscles
are
are more.
greater.
So angina is treated with tablets. And if tablets doesn't control it, we have to find some way of keeping the blood vessel open. And that is when we start telling them to spend a whole heap of money to do angiogram, and then to put stents in if there's blockages there. All right.
You know, I did a surgery in January. So I was glad that when I did, because you had to do this ECG to make sure the heart can manage the surgery and all of that. My heart was good.
Excellent.
Yes,
Your exercise
my heart
works.
was good.
All right. So those are two things that persons have to you know, because heart attack kills. Angina can result in
death, if not
I mean the function of the heart can get bad. All right.
I have just before you move on, I noticed you said in the case of a heart attack, time numbers are important.
It is.
So I have a challenge sometimes now with our hospital system, because if someone have a heart attack and rush to the hospital and is not seen, they might get to the place on time, but whoever is dealing with at the emergency section don't take your case as serious, and you don't get to see a doctor quick enough. Some persons miss
I
that
hope that's
number.
not a question for me.
No, I'm not asking a question. It's a statement. It's a reality. Some persons miss that mark, that number that they could have made life a little better for them. And sometimes they can't think of a private institution and they should rush to, because, okay, you have a private institution. What you lack now?
Yeah, and I don't see persons who I think have heart attack there.
Okay.
Because I can't offer
the
what
care
they
that they
need.
need, right? So that's a challenge in Jamaica. You have to go to most time the government
You
systems.
have to go to a
Private hospitals are extremely expensive, and our health system is so. I don't know what is wrong with our health system. It's overburdened, it's overworked. Sometimes we have caregivers who don't care, because we tend to curse governments on a whole to say government institution. But I always say the care you receive at the front is depending on the man who is running the front at that time. It's not government.
I mean, there are guidelines, and when it comes on to the heart and the heart attack and stroke, there are clear guidelines throughout the world that mandates that we are supposed to follow. The challenge, I'll just mention a few things. The challenge with us is at the back end, the care that is required at the end is not available.
Yes.
Although I said heart is muscle. Heart is muscle. We divide a heart attack into two types.
Okay.
So there is one type, once you look on the ECG, that paper with the little squiggly lines that gets done when you come in with chest pain, that squiggly line can tell them for sure you have a heart attack.
Okay.
All right. One type of the heart attack. And that's the one that we take you as an emergency to put in stents.
Okay.
And then you have another one where you're having a heart attack, but the squiggly lines is not convincing for a heart attack. And then we have to wait on the blood test. And the blood test can take hours to get back the result. And say, oh, you know, you have a heart attack. So those are the ones that we tend to give medications, and they go later on to have their angiogram and get stents. But then there is one group of persons that immediately, you know, within less than 12 hours, we want to get you into a cath lab. But of course, the main challenge is money.
Money, that's another story. Again, healthcare is expensive.
Yeah, it is. It is expensive. And at the front end and at the back end, it's a lot.
It's a lot. It's a lot. You know, and sometimes when every time I just went through my own procedures and stuff, and it is pushing me to say I need to start a foundation. I need to help people, because I look at, I don't have a lot of money, but I was able to do the things I have to do, and I got good doctors who were able to work with me. And it still was such a challenge. I imagine a little man or a little woman up the stream who don't have the support that I had. Because God is good. I had a good network, support network, and I am forever grateful for each level of support that I received. The ones who make so emotionally, I'm doing okay. The ones who will, like today, would tell me, sit down, don't carry nothing. We don't get no help from you. You know, that kind of thing. And also the financial support persons get. It is pretty expensive to do healthcare in Jamaica.
It is.
And a matter of fact, it's not just Jamaica, it's worldwide. Because I get the stories from other persons across the globe. And the only challenge difference is that in some countries, you're able to get some more than you're getting some. Jamaica, the original healthcare system is free, but most of what you need is not provided in the healthcare. You have to pay for it externally, and there comes the challenge. Even with the heart. And I know when I put the flyer out yesterday to say we're going to be on to talk about the heart today, somebody, I'm not even sure if it's male or female, I just got a message, to say they'll be listening in because they really want to hear about how to cure the heart, that they don't need to spend that whole heap of money on the back end, because apparently they had a family member who have gone through quite a bit, and because of lack of funds, he died.
Okay. Yeah. So
how do we cure the heart?
So it's a very important aspect of it, because, as I said, a lot of persons, what kills person blockages of the blood vessels, the narrowing, the heart attacks, angina later on resulting in a complete block.
So how do we block up the heart?
So
I saw the blood going in there.
If we live long enough, all of us will have blockages.
Okay. That's not promising.
I mean,
I'm just kidding.
They get narrowed. The blood vessels are going to get narrow. I mean,
naturally.
Some of us, it will happen earlier, and some of us, it will happen in our 90s and our 100s and thereabouts. So let's think about it. The blood vessels, carries blood. And I always use the analogy with my patients. If they are old enough, they'll remember the metal pipes.
Yes.
That carries water every day. Every day water running in them. And now, if you go to most homes, not many of them has those metal pipes.
No.
Because they all got blocked up.
Corroded.
Start
a shell on the inside.
And then calcium get deposited on it. All right? So, that's the same process that goes on with our blood vessels. Our blood is required to carry whatever we put in it. The high cholesterol. So that is flowing in the blood vessels. So that's good. That has to be deposited somewhere before it reaches where it's going to be cleaned and cleared up. It has to travel in a pipeline. So it travels in the pipelines to the ones around the heart. And your cholesterol deposit what we call plaques. It's where plaque. And that starts about age 30. For almost all of us. But it is more in person. So if you have the high cholesterol, you have to change your diet, you have to start exercising, and therefore and take your medication if you're diagnosed with. Some of us are unfortunate enough that we are born with it in our family.
Challenges, yeah.
Yes. And then high blood pressure. Remember I said high blood pressure makes the blood vessels get stiff. So you can imagine you having this increased blood pressure in the blood vessels all the time. The blood vessels, something is going to give. They're going to get deposit of plaques.
And I wanted to repeat that one again, because there are a lot of hypertensive persons who are not going to the doctor, they're not taking their medication, and they're not doing anything else. Lifestyle is not matching up to decrease their blood pressure. Let them know they're leading.
Lifestyle will decrease your blood pressure by a maximum if you put in everything. Lose weight, exercise, by decrease the blood pressure by about 10. Which is why we recommend it for persons who run blood pressures like 140 over 90. I would say to the person, I am not going to start you on a pill just yet, because you can exercise, you can lose some weight, you can change your diet by reducing the amount of salt. and you can drop it from 140 down to 130s thereabout without any pills. But it's the 160 and the 170 and the 180, and I tell you to go exercise. And I know I might not get more than 10 or 15. You're still going to be above the 140 over 90, and it's going to put you at risk of getting the narrowing. Now, that is one. The other one is diabetes. So diabetes is a big risk factor because all that sugar has to be deposited somewhere. And some of it gets deposited in the blood vessels. Not immediately, folks.
Right.
Over time. Then there's the one that Dr. Asha mentioned, laziness, physical activity.
Yes.
We need to get up. We need to move around.
Yes,
then there is a new one now called stress.
Oh, yes. That, I think, is one of the biggest killer across the for attention to it. Stressfulness. In my persons were not go to the doctor and I put a finger on the problem. Well, is stress killing you?
Stress. So stress is stress is an independent risk factor, cardiac disease. Independent by itself. And then there are others. So activity. And then there is another one that some of them that we can't do anything. We can't do anything about the fact that we get a little old. We can't do anything about the fact that we are males. And then at some point we are going to become menopausal. Well, amen.
Well, you have the andropause. Men do have andropause, whether you want to accept it or not.
And then we can't do anything about the family. We don't choose our family.
No.
So if you're in a family that is that risk blockage, if a first degree relative means your father or your brother or sister, but with a male have that, then you are at a higher risk than the rest of the population. Or if your first degree relative female have it at age less than age 65. So if your mom has a heart attack at 50 something, you have to do some of the things that we're talking about. The exercise, control your blood pressure.
Pay more attention.
Yes, pay more attention, lose some weight. All right. So those are things we can't do anything about. And then of course, there are some persons who will get the narrowing and the blockages simply because of what we do. Treatment. Like some persons will get certain conditions that put them at higher risk of getting what we call higher risk of stress levels. All right. So there's chronic inflammation in the body and they'll get narrowing. So, and then there are persons who will get some radiation treatment to close to the heart. Like persons with breast cancer who get some radiation to the heart. In the old days, it used to happen. Nowadays, the radiation therapy to cancers close to the heart is so directed, so focused that it doesn't affect the blood vessels that much anymore. But we still have to bear that in mind. So those are some of the risk factors. And if you check yourself, if you lead a healthy life, I can't say a life free of stress,
because
but a life
no
reduced.
such thing.
No such thing.
But you can manage. You learn to
Manage
manage
your
stressors.
Find ways, enjoy life,
Get help.
and do what you need to do. And then if you have any symptoms of heart disease, then you should get checked. No,
What are some of the symptoms?
Yes. So before I even talk about the symptoms, so we talk about prevention, then we talk about screening.
Oh, yes. Okay,
Somebody mentioned that mentioned the squiggly lines.
Yes.
So if you have high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, family history of heart attack, and or you're overweight, obesity, you're sedentary, it's easy to get a screening test. Just ask your doctor to do an ECG. And it's a screening. And a screening means that it's cheap, can get everywhere, and it just indicates some you do it and it suggests something might be going wrong. Then we start asking signs and symptoms. So we start asking, do you have any chest pain? Do you get chest pain when you walk around? Tell me the type of chest pain. Where is the chest pain? Tends to be either in the center of the chest or to the left side, under the left breast. A little heaviness that comes on, that gets a little worse with activity when I'm walking or if I'm carrying something in my arm. Some persons will report they get a little bit of pain going up the left side of their neck to the jaw or down the left arm. That gets a little worse with activity and goes away with rest. Then there is shortness of breath. The heart is so interrelated to the lung that if your pump not working well, you will get short of breath. Not able to lie flat on the yes. When you lie flat, you feel like you're drowning. So you sleep on a lot of pillows because you have to prop yourself up. And then you get up in the middle of the night trying to catch breath. Legs swelling of the leg, poor appetite, swelling of the belly. So all of those. And of course, the big one that we hear a lot, which can be a disease by itself, is the palpitation. My heart's racing and my heart skipping a beat, that, and it going fast, it's fluttering. So those are common symptoms to look for, even fatigue. So you do the screening test, which is the ECG, and then your doctor should, or your healthcare provider should not be some general screen test. Say, yeah, what I see there might be suggesting that you may have had a previous heart attack, but just by talking to you, you have no symptoms. I probably leave it there, or we can move on to a more advanced screening test.
Yes. Because I've heard of persons, I don't know anyone who it has happened to, but I've heard of persons who have had more than one heart attack and not realize that they had heart
You
attack.
can, and that's the thing. And it is very common in
They miss the sign.
females as well as diabetics. So
Oh.
diabetics get what we call silent heart attacks because diabetes affect the nerves. So you don't feel it. You need nerves to have pain. So you have, so the ECG, yeah, like I say, or, you know, if you have a lot of endurance and you're fit, you brush it off. A lot of time you feel a little, I feel a little niggling in the chest there. Yeah, it lasts probably 3 or 4 hours and it goes away. No, I'm quite fine. Remember I said, you know, you stop having pain when there is more blood flow back, blood flow is back, has been restored, or the muscle has died. So the muscle died, 3 hours, 4 hours, it's a good die, fine, pain gone, and don't have any difficulty. And it's a small heart attack, so you don't know until you go and do an angiogram, and somebody say, you know, you have about 3 or 4 blockage. You say, what? I never know that.
Yeah,
when me get a heart attack?
Because somebody was telling me that it happened to a family member of theirs. I don't know the person. He's not in Jamaica. But she was saying to me, oh, him if he has much heart attack, I never know.
Yeah, you don't have to feel it. Because, or you feel them, but
they ignore the signs because it was
women will always say, you know, that may have a little pain on it here.
It's not women.
I'm going to drink the tea and we bust a gas.
It's not women. Jamaicans. It's the other day was even running a joke that every illness in Jamaica can be fixed by a cup of tea.
Yes, man. They drink some peppermint or ginger and that may bust the gas and I feel a lot better. It is true. But you know, because if you think of it, you're the naturopath. If you think about those tea that they drink, some of those tea results in dilatation of the vessel and calm you down.
And removal of the fluid. And
yes. So it does settle you. It does make you feel a little better, but it does not fix the problem.
Because there's a gentleman, I know someone, he's now dead from Senan, and he was working with the Ministry of Health, go figure. And he was having heart attacks and other challenges, and he was just drinking tea. Drinking, and he's going to the Ministry of Health building to work every single day in a hospital in St. Anne, and he never went to see the doctor. He fell ill at work and he died. And then that is when his wife was saying, you know, says from when him having the problem, I tell him to go to the doctor, and he said, his mother said he was drinking.
And heart disease is such, you know, a significant and life-changing event that we try to deny it. And you go a lot of times because, and even as a cardiologist, sometimes I forget that when I say to a patient, sir, your heart muscles are bad. The function of your heart is bad. And your symptoms, you know, are do that. I forget that they sometimes get very depressed.
Yes.
You know, and then they start going through the whole thing, the denial, the bargaining, and then they will accept.
And what I have found
you
is
know?
that when it comes to these kind of announcements, men tend to recede easier into themselves than women. Men tend to become more depressed. Sometimes they don't tell their family that this was told to them, and the family found out later on. Women sometimes may not tell their family, but they tell somebody, they talk about it, and they get help. Some of us. But we are at a place still in our culture where we treat illnesses with secrecy.
Yeah, it is. It is. It is. Especially if it's very life changing.
We
You
don't
don't want to
talk.
be a burden to anyone.
No. And to be honest, I remember when I realized within myself, even before I went to the doctor, that I had cancer recently. And I said to myself, no, this is cancer. And I'm thinking about all the possibilities of the life changes. It took me my own time to work it out in my mind, decide with God what I'm going to do before I even tell my family. So I worked with it in myself for a while. Then I wanted to make sure what was happening before I shared it with my family. And then I shared it with my family. I still, even when everybody telling me everything else around, I still had to work that out in my mind, because now it's a life-changing decision that I will have to make. And so I put myself in the place of someone who is still not as informed as I am. And you have to make this life-changing decision. You look at the impacts you're going to have. I thought about my heart. I'm recovering from breast cancer, still in recovery stage. And I was looking at, what am I going to do? Chemotherapy. What am I going to do? How it's going to impact the rest of my health? And so as a woman, I am able to talk to my family about it. However, my husband is not someone that talks a lot. So I start to put myself in this. And so I started to ask him questions, how you feel, what you think. And then I was pretty amazed, because he's someone that don't talk a lot. But I was pretty amazed when he said to me, a friend of his was asking how I'm doing now. And I said, okay, that means he shared what he's going through with someone else, because I gave him permission to share, because I know he needs to talk, and he will not always want to talk to me. He wants to talk to his colleagues and his friends. So I gave him that permission. He was selective in who he talks to about it as well. But then when he gave me the feedback that they're asking how I am doing, that means he shared with someone. And that is very important when someone gets a diagnosis, especially you hear that the heart not working. Because the first thing that comes to your mind when you hear that the heart not working so good, if my heart gone, me dead. Yes. And a lot of men as well. And I wanted to talk about it, because a lot of men don't want to hear about the heart because they think about the other head.
Yes. Okay.
That might not work.
So after I speak about the other, the other aspect. So put it this way. 10 minutes. Okay. So the other aspect of prevention of heart disease, especially if you're hypertensive, is that with said the blood vessels are getting narrowed throughout the entire body. So a lot of men will associate the loss of function because of disease, because of the medication. But believe it or not, a lot of time when you lose the function, I mean, function was going,
right,
but you just wasn't paying that much attention to it. It's the same process. Their blood vessels get narrowed. At some point, it was going to stop anyway.
Because some things were slowing down.
So what the medications does, and I agree, yes, some of the medications will make the function,
completely gone for a while.
Make it, well, not for a while, probably permanently.
Some permanently.
Because you might be on the medication, and then we do have other pills. We have the blue pill can help you. So it's not because you have a heart disease mean you can't go on the blue pill. You can go on the blue pill if you need. That satisfaction is
young
important.
Men who are using the blue pill now,
it's not for that.
It's going to destroy you for later.
Yeah, the blue pill in the young men is you don't need it yet.
Yeah, they don't.
You wait until it drops, then or it gets a little bit lighter.
And remember now, if you have that challenge, contact me. I will show you how to be creative. It's not the end of the world.
All right. So there's two things that I want to mention about the heart before I contact a certain person. Yes. All right. So there's two things. So there's one common condition that I want to mention because a lot of persons have it, and I know persons might ask about it when we are finished here. AFib, atrial fibrillation.
Yes.
So AFib is.
Oh, you know, I did get that
yes.
question too.
Yeah. So atrial fibrillation and atrial flutter is a condition which we see a lot in the elderly. Once you get a little older, where the heartbeat comes from, you get a lot of beats coming from a lot of different places, and the upper part of the heart flutters. But you have an area that controls the number of beat that leaves the upper part of your heart to the lower part. The gatekeeper. We doctors love to say it's the gatekeeper that controls the number of beats. So the heart is fluttering, and the person will describe that they're feeling the heart fluttering. Atrial fibrillation, apart from that, fluttering in the heart and feeling, you know, like your heart is just going to jump out of your chest. We can give you something to control the rate. But the main thing we are worried about is the risk of stroke.
Okay.
And when the heart is fluttering in the upper part, what you get is that the blood will stay there and you can get clots. Very, very tiny clots. These are not big clots. These are very tiny clots that the heart will squeeze out brain. And where it blocks off, it's not the big blood vessels in the brain. It tends to be the smaller ones. So you get a little smaller knocked off here and there, and it tends to be multiple clots in the brain because they're coming from the heart. It doesn't single out one site, just like what you get with when you have a clot in the neck. It goes to one side of the brain. It's not that when it's coming from the heart. So atrial fibrillation is real. It's easily controlled, and the main risk is really stroke. Some persons can get the heart function going down from the atrial fibrillation, and they can go into heart failure. So you can imagine you have a narrowing of the blood vessels and your heart going fast. You're going to feel chest pain. You're going to get angina at rest, doing nothing. So you need to get your stents fixed, get your blockages fixed because of that. But the atrial fibrillation can control. The other one that was mentioned, it was mentioned by Dr. Asher in passing, the valves.
Oh, yes.
So you can get disease affecting the valves. The valves allow the blood to flow in one direction. So blood is supposed to come in and go back out. It should not be going back the same way it's coming from. But we have a condition in Jamaica that affects children between the age 5 to 15 called rheumatic fever.
Oh, yes. My mom had it.
Yeah.
My mom had it.
So rheumatic fever is caused by a bacteria, group A streptococcus bacteria, that gives you a sore throat. And for some reason, whatever happened, the interactions that happen affects the valves of the heart. And the valves either get very tight or they get very leaky. A lot of our young people need their valves to be changed because of rheumatic fever affecting the heart. So we call it rheumatic heart disease. Now, as well, if you live long enough, there's one valve that's going to get calcified, the aortic valve, and a lot of persons will need to change their aortic valve. But you can imagine you're 85 years old when it gets narrow and doctor will say, but you need a valve change, you know. So they come up with new things now. You don't necessarily need surgery. We can just go in through the groin and put in a new valve now for the aortic valve. Tends to be done a lot of the older persons. Man, those valves can last 10 to 15 years. So, you know, you're 90 years old, you get a valve at 10. You probably may need one when you're 100 again, but you don't need open heart surgery for it. And that is coming to Jamaica as well. It's here in Jamaica, and we should be able to offer it. You know, the more we do, the cheaper the cost will be for persons. But, you know, they have to be screened, I think. So there's two things that I want to mention. There's a whole lot about the heart. And you can realize how passionate I am about the heart.
Yes.
And you know,
we might have to have continuous conversations about the heart. Yes.
And there's so many aspects to it.
But I don't want to, we have about 5 minutes left, and I don't want you to leave without telling us what you do and where we find you and how can we get that service. You're giving you that opportunity this evening.
All right, they're giving me that opportunity. All right, so as I said, I'm a consultant cardiologist. I'm a doctor that specializes in heart disease, either the rhythm or the muscles or the blood vessels, and treating and diagnosis. So I'm what is called a non-invasive cardiologist. Awesome. Non-invasive meaning that I don't go around pushing tubes into your blood vessels and in order to open up things. So a lot of the work I do is is mainly diagnostic work. So we do the ECGs. I interpret all ECGs. I also do ultrasound of the heart, which is called an echocardiogram. By looking, so we can look at the heart muscles, we can look at the function, we can look at the valves, we can look at the blood flow through the heart.
Right.
And then the other aspect of my job is I do stress testing by putting the heart. So stress testing is what Dr. Asha does at home every day when she goes to her gym, which is what we do. We put the heart under a bit of stress, which is increasing the heart rate to the numbers that we see.
Okay.
Yeah, man, we take it to 85%. We want it at 85% or above, so we can see what happens and we monitor it. And that is what gives us an indication as to whether you're having narrowing or blockages. And then, of course, I see patients, consultant patients, and I treat their conditions dependent on what we find. The other aspect is that I am located throughout the island. My main office is in Otrius, 103 Main Street in Otrius. But then I have several branches. I have a branch in Falmouth, 21 Queen Street. Don't ask me the numbers, please. I'm at 21 Queen Street, where the Eagle Medical Lab is. We offer a cardiac service there. Mark you, as I said, it's really non-angiograms. All right. And then I'm also in Anato Bay in St. Mary. And I have an office as well in Portland.
Okay. Awesome.
Portland, yes, in Port Antonio. And then my partner, we have diverted in other things as well. I have an office in Linstead in St. Catherine. And then we have an office in Kingston. So in Kingston, we do a little bit more invasive work in Kingston.
Okay.
In Dunrobin at Superior Imaging Center.
Okay, I know where that is.
Yes. So I do a lot and I'm all over the place. And then, of course, I still find some time to teach medical students and
look at you
and be a father and be a husband. And,
all right. And you know what? I am glad you have said all those things. Because when people used to ask me how you do everything you do, and I say it's all about managing time, here is someone who's doing much more than I am doing.
Yes, I just go to them different times
and do what we need to do. And so, Dr. Riley, it is so awesome to have had you with us this evening. We look forward to continuing this relationship, and we will be inviting you back again. And if we don't invite you and something is happening, I think we need to know, touch base. We'll say, oh yes, come on in. Come on in. So this evening from Healing Moments, all I want to say to you in my inspiration moment for you this evening is the heart matters. Take care of your heart. Treat your heart very well. It's not just about for pain. It's also for pleasure and for lifelong living. Take care of yourself. This is Dr. Asha Mwendo, your host for this evening on Healing Moments at Fit FM 96.7, your life, your music. My guest was Dr. Vincent Riley, and we'll do it all again next week, same time, with a different person, a different story, but just as interesting. Good evening. Walk good. Love you.